I remember you talking about you wrote down a goal when you were in your teens that represent Australia,
Yep.
and then finally,
Yep.
yeah, you've
Yeah.
achieved that.
Yeah. Either Olympics, World Champs, or Com Games. They're
Yep,
essentially the
yep,
same qualification, just in different years. So to be able to do that, I was always fully aware that the times I was running were probably not equivalent to what some of the guys are doing in the 800 meters or the
yeah,
1500 meters, but just to be able to take those opportunities and stuff were like that. Yeah, it meant a lot, and like to be able to get that chance was awesome. It didn't quite go to plan, but I'm
mm,
very glad that I managed to compete at the World Championships.
yeah. So coming across the line in Lake Biwa, did you know that you were going to be
Uh,
top three or whatever there?
so it, I can't remember the exact circumstance, but like I knew that it meant unless like it might have been like a Liam Adams or something would have had to like change his mind
Yeah, yeah,
or something like that. And then in the end, Jack Colreevy, who was behind me in that race,
yeah,
like he was on the team as well because maybe Jeff Hunt pulled out
yeah,
or something like that. But yeah, for whatever reason, I knew where people were running and who the contenders were and stuff. Yes, I was pretty sure, unless like yeah, Liam changed his mind or that
yeah.
that it definitely mean that. Although I still remember while I was waiting for that official call, like I was still nervous until it happened because like yeah, it wasn't actually guaranteed.
Yeah. I mean, and there's also a history of Athletics Australia in the past not even sending full teams. I guess they'd
Mm,
relaxed it by that stage and they were
yes.
actually trying to get more people
Yeah.
going to World Championships. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's always that possibility.
Yeah.
Um, so London World Champs, you're heading in, prep's going really well, and then what, 16 days out?
Yep. Yeah, so I'd been managing like a little niggle, I guess you'd call it, for about 4 years.
Yeah,
But by that point, I'd wake up and my foot would hurt.
yeah,
But then I'd do some activation. I'd run a K or two, and I'd be good as gold. Like
yeah,
wouldn't notice anything. So like as far as I was concerned, like that was fine. Like I'd
yeah. I've probably got
you know
about three of those kind of
yeah.
now. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
everyone
like,
kind of has one, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, yes, I'd be impacted by it like 20 hours a day, but
Yeah,
like the 3 hours a day that I was training, like it wouldn't impact me at all. And so it was in that region.
yeah,
And then I was in St. Moritz preparing for the World Champs, and like who knows if this is coincidence or not, but I purposely like I whenever I had like physio or like screenings or stuff like that, like
yeah,
I'd always avoid that issue. Like if I had to do like a screening at the physio, like I'd run before, so I was warmed up and like not
yeah,
in pain or anything like that. Anyway, so I was in St. Moritz and we had like the team physio there, and so I mentioned, oh yeah, like I get this like thing in my foot, like it just blah blah blah. And so he spent like, oh, I don't know, 20 minutes kind of digging into the foot with like lots of massage and stuff like that. And so anyway, the next day I've got a 90-minute workout.
mm,
I can't remember if it was like 90 steady or like an alteration with like some marathon pace into like something a bit faster back into some marathon pace. It was one of the two.
yeah,
And I remember like a few Ks in, I had like one step and like I just had this massive pain just shoot through that area in my foot.
yeah,
And like I kind of like I pulled up and I was like, oh geez, I'm in a bit of trouble here. Um, anyway, like I kind of tried to stretch it out. Like I'd been used to like small issues in that area for so long, but
yeah,
it was really different. And yeah, it turned out that was the stressy in the talus. So like I'm not sure what was there previous compared to what actually happened in that step. I don't know if there was any coincidences about the first day I let someone kind
yeah,
of do something, then it's all kind of released, and the next day it just busts.
Yeah.
I really don't know, but that happened 16 days out. I didn't know that it was a stressy until I think 6 or 7 days out.
Yep.
Um, the second that week was terrible, but I kind of bared, like I pushed through it. Um, it was weird. Like I would kind of get better as some of these runs progressed, but I couldn't
Mm.
predict it anymore. Like it
Yeah.
was, yeah, it was really weird. And then I found out that it was a stressy like 6 days out, and then so that week before the race was terrible. Like
Mm.
mentally, really hard, knowing that was in there, like so close to like I guess the biggest race of my career.
Yeah. No, it's devastating because you're basically trying to look forward to this thing you've been
Mm.
working for so
Yep.
long,
Yep.
and then it's just gonna it's gonna be an
Yep.
ordeal essentially to get through it.
Yeah, and
Um,
then people are like, people are telling me that like you risk like your whole career if you
yeah.
run, and then you've got the moral dilemmas of you've worked your ass off for this world
Yeah.
champs. Like I'm just trying to think of who was around at the time, like Sally Pearson or something. I'm not Sally Pearson and get to do this thing every year. Like this,
Yeah.
this could be it kind of thing. So
Mm.
yeah, it was a really tricky week, and like I didn't know if I'd be unimpacted. I didn't know if
Yeah.
I'd be impacted but okay, or when that would happen, or
Yeah.
so it was a very much an unknown heading in, and the final week was terrible. I felt, and coming back to what I said before about detraining, like I
Yeah.
seriously feel like in that 6 or 7 days, like I lost a couple of percent from like how good I was going
Yeah.
previously. Even in the K's where I felt good.
Yeah. Even like the psychological, the emotional kind of toll it
Yeah,
take on you, because marathoning is, or any running is pretty emotional in terms of
yeah,
you need to be in the right frame of mind to be able to perform. So
yeah,
that would have wiped you out, I imagine, as
yeah.
well.
Yeah,
Um,
it was just really taxing. I think one thing that I was happy about in hindsight is that we were racing on like a 10K loop.
yeah.
Um, so by the time it started to become like a real issue, like it didn't matter. Like I'd seen everything there was to see out there, and if I didn't try and like walk jog the last like 14 kilometers, that like
Mm,
I didn't miss anything out on the course anyway. I'd seen
yeah.
all there was to see, and I didn't have to do it again.
Mm, it's good. So you had your sister out on the course as well? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Callie, yeah, she flew over. I think it was her first overseas trip, so it was great to have her there. So I think I decided at maybe like 24 kilometers. I think she was at about the 28K mark on that third lap of the loop that I'd probably get to there and pull the pin. I was already running about 5 minute Ks by then. It
mm,
was a really weird feeling. Like it was a dull pain. I just couldn't
yeah.
get power out of it, and yeah, I knew it wasn't gonna like the next 14K wouldn't be nice if I tried to continue on. I don't think
Yeah.
there was much to gain
Definitely.
from doing that. I went into the race hoping that I could get through it and have a good performance, or have an
Yeah.
okay performance. But by that stage, I knew that there was no good performance coming out. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was that.
Yeah. That's right. So you took the shirt off, which is
Yep,
the
as tradition.
yeah. Is it
Yep.
Mona and Deeks and all those guys try and enforce that, I
Yep.
guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember Millie Clark used to rip into me about that photo. She used to love it. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a funny one. I haven't seen it for a while, but yeah, the picture of me on the back of the motorbike in the shirt.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
that's a good one. So the recovery after that, it took a long, long time for your foot to, I guess,
Yeah,
just be at the point where you could jog again. And
yeah, it was pretty crap. I don't think I helped it that much with like late nights and stuff like that in
yeah.
in that process. Like I was told to not do anything for 12 weeks or whatever, which I didn't, but then I was kind of doing a lot of partying at the time, and I
Yeah.
think in that process, I was probably like putting way too much load through
Yeah.
it, either dancing or jogging from pub to pub, kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
stupid stuff like that. And so like it didn't heal.
Yeah.
And so then we got advice from the surgeon that like I probably needed surgery because it wasn't healing. So
Yeah.
that was maybe at like the 5 month mark or something like that. And then that was like a full reset, like the crutches. And then like from there I was far more sensible. I think the crutches and stuff like that actually helped kind of settle me down a bit
Yeah.
in terms of putting load through there. And I think by the time I took my first walk jog step, it was almost 12 months.
Yeah.
Um, and then that next 12 months after that was just like, oh, geez, maybe like 2 months, 2 years on from the injury, I'd done like a 70K week or something.
Yeah.
But I dabbled in like some cycling in the meantime while that was happening, and cross training to keep fit and that kind of thing. It was a long process for sure. I eventually got pretty fit again though.
Yeah. You did. I can remember you ran, was it 30:42 for 10K a couple of years after? So you got back down.
Yeah, and I ran
Yeah.
I ran a bit quicker
Oh,
again
you did. Yeah.
in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think in in COVID I did run 30:40 for
Yeah.
10K, which
Yeah.
was, I was happy to kind of get back to that level because there was quite a period there where I was kind of more like running like 32s, the occasional 31,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. Like maybe I snuck under 15 for 5K or
Yeah.
or thereabouts. But I started going pretty well again in COVID, and then pretty much as races were starting to get re-released, I got a sacral stressy, which kind of halted the progress
Yeah.
a little bit, and it took me a while to get going again after that one.
Yeah. That's strange because you'd been so robust for so long
Mm,
and you'd had the foot injury, obviously,
yeah,
but nothing else. And
yeah.
then how many Ks a week do you think you were doing at that time when you got the
Oh
sacral?
no, it was, oh, I can't remember. There were a few injuries that I got late in the piece. There was
Yeah.
one. There was an injury I got where I was running like 65K a week, and I'd only been back for like not long at all. And I picked
Yeah.
up another injury, and I was just thinking like, what's going on here? And
Mm.
like from some of my later like trips to like some specialists in terms of like things like podiatry and stuff like that, I was very much like favoring certain places. My foot mechanics weren't working properly anymore.
Yeah.
There were just lots of kind of carryover effects from either the injury or just the years of abuse that
Yeah.
I'd put in there previously. So like I picked up another stress reaction in my other foot at at some point. Yeah, I went from being like, yeah, almost bulletproof to, yeah, I couldn't kind of keep myself on the park for a little bit there, in the kind of 2020 to 2022 kind of period.
Yeah. And so when did you stop running? Just in your mind, when did you basically said, okay, I'm not going to run anymore. I'm just going to cycle?
It pretty much happened overnight in
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
Um, I was running really quite well in 2022, and I had some big goals. Like I wanted to break 14 minutes for 5K, and I thought that like I'd found a bit of a formula where I could do enough volume, intensity, cross training, and that kind of thing. That like I thought that it was something that I could probably work towards, but I had a bit of an average run on the Gold Coast half marathon.
Yeah.
Came back from that, and I was training, and the niggle in my foot, like the talus,
Yeah.
which I'd occasionally get like bits and pieces of. I had like I guess you'd say like another bad step, not as bad, but um, I went from actually feeling really, really consistent in it, like the most consistent I'd been in that whole post injury period, to all of a sudden I had a bad step, and and then I was in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
1 week later, I was like, okay, like I was doing a bit of a test run, some kind of session it was, and I remember I was running up Heritage Forest. The guy who owned the running company, I saw him. I saw him come past the other direction. About 100 meters later, I pulled up like lame with another bad step, and like that was that. I called the session, walked back to the car, and then pretty much like that was the last time I ever like saw myself as a runner.
Yeah.
Um, I immediately jumped onto Zwift and started kind of taking that seriously. I think for maybe like a couple of months I was doing maybe like 30, 40K a week of jogging, some runs with like Kate, my partner. Um, but that day I think was the last moment that I saw myself as a runner.
Yeah. And so
And
you,
yeah, I
yeah,
don't know why, but like I didn't care. Like I didn't go to the physio about my injury. I just stopped
yeah,
and then just took up something different.
yeah. It's funny because I think as runners, we all kind of have this thing in our heads of like, if I can't run anymore, I'm going to die. It's kind of like
Yeah, yeah.
the end of the world. But it's good to hear that you actually like, it wasn't like that at all. You were able to shift into something completely different and get just as much enjoyment out of that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the cycling was a weird one because um by then like I'd done a fair bit of cycling. Like I when I was coming back from the Taylor surgery, I had a season of road cycling where I competed internationally, but I found like I found that like I just didn't have the skills of
yeah,
the cyclists that had been lifelong, and I hated the like peloton stuff. Like I just didn't want to be there. Like I was
mm,
a runner that had decent power, and I didn't want to be in those kind of scary situations. So um, I kept cycling for cross training purposes in that
yeah,
2020 to 22 period. And even like in 2021, 2022, I was regularly on Zwift or like even still then, probably outside a little bit to supplement my running that I was doing. Because I was of that mindset that, you know, I'm used to running 200 plus K a week. Like, how am I going to be as good with 100K a week
mm,
if I'm not doing something else as well
yeah,
for the aerobic system? So it was nice that I had that there. That if I did ever pick up niggles and stuff, that I could just jump on the bike. Which like so it wasn't like I just found something new that night. It was something that I'd been doing at that stage for probably like 3 years, but I just then decided to take it seriously and that there was a competitive avenue for it, and then I started to love it.
no, that's good. So when did you start getting, I guess, really competitive with the cycling
Yeah.
on Zwift?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So pretty much like within a couple of weeks of that like foot issue,
yeah,
um, I'm thinking that we might be in say August, start of September, and there was a qualification for the World Champs at the start of November,
yeah,
which is something that, like at the time, like I didn't really have aspirations to make the team or anything, but I'd seen it the year previous and thought, oh, that would be like a really cool event to be part of and kind of see where you stack up and that kind of thing. And within that 8 weeks, I decided that I wanted to participate in that championship, which you know anyone could if you had the right equipment and went through like the right process.
yeah,
And within that 8 weeks, I just started like doing a lot of like racing and stuff on Zwift because like I didn't have the running to worry about. That I was, you know, I was going to tax myself for the next run, and I found that I really quickly picked up like some of that punch back just through doing like heaps of racing, a lot more like sprinting, high intensity stuff, and things happened really quickly. And so I managed to grab one of those spots for the world champs in that race in November, and
yeah.
I'm pretty sure like that's when like apart from a couple of runs, I haven't ran since because like from that moment, I've pretty much been all in on all in on the esports, and like I've
Yeah.
really like went from strength to strength in the last like 3 years now, because I guess like I was still very new to it, and there was still like so many like things that I could improve on to kind of, if you look at then versus now.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm just aware of the time, and I guess maybe now it's a good chance to kind of go into a few other questions that
Yep.
I kind of have here. I'll just bring them
Yeah,
up.
mate.
All right, so let's go. I guess first of all, just in a little icebreaker, I guess. Yeah, so the term junk mileage gets thrown
Yep.
around quite often in Tasmanian running circles. What do you think of the term?
Yeah, I don't think that there are junk miles, to be honest. I think in the right circumstances, all time training can benefit in some regard. And I really like your recent video where you discuss the junk mileage stuff.
Mm,
Obviously, if there are factors in your life, not everyone's maximizing every potential gain that they're doing. That
mm,
running easy those extra kilometers mightn't be the most effective way to try and squeeze out those gains. But yeah, I certainly think that that people think that running big volumes comes with like such a big injury risk.
yeah,
But I really agree with your sentiments that like running more and running easier a lot really actually kind of hardens you up to kind of have less injury risk compared to the typical person that you see maybe running like 50K a week. They're doing two or three like hard track sessions, and they're regularly kind of getting injured because they don't have the strength and the base behind them to handle it. So yeah, I think there are so many training adaptations and gains that you can look for, but essentially, if most people ran more, they'd get
yeah,
better.
yeah. Spot on. 100%. I agree. 100%. Um, yeah, just from my observations, just on Strava and whatever, the people that I follow that don't run a lot, but they run fairly intense sessions, those are the people that seem to bounce from injury to injury.
Yeah,
But the people that run a little bit slower, maybe relatively, and do a little bit high mileage, those are the people that are able to string weeks and months together. So yeah, totally
yeah,
agree. I think we answered quite a few of these just in the
yep.
discussion before, but if you were still running, do you think your training would be any different to what you were doing back in 2015 to 2017? For example, is there anything you've learned from cycling training that you think would be a good inclusion in a running program?
It's a really hard question because like it depends on like my body status. Like
Yeah,
is my body like the same body that it was back then compared to like the body that I had a couple of years ago.
mm,
Because because like I already had to kind of make adjustments for I guess the new me
yeah,
and that kind of thing. And like I think from my cycling, like I've redeveloped some of that punch, but
yeah,
the demands of cycling are different to the demands for most runners. Like yourself, you're going out to race a marathon, and it's a one paced
yeah,
effort for 2.5 hours. You've got to be able to sit at that pace for 2.5 hours, whereas what I'm doing requires like massive accelerations. And if
yeah,
if you don't accelerate in that moment, like your day's done. It doesn't
yeah,
matter if that's in the first 30 seconds of the race or wherever it is. So it's very different in that regard. Um, and I think it just depends like what you're training for and what level that you're at. Um,
yeah,
like elite athletes are trying to squeeze every gain that they can out of themselves, whereas like most recreational runners can probably improve from like just any different stimulus. It might
yeah,
be like doing the Norwegian singles like you are. They might improve their threshold from here to here, or if that person really focused in on like some intense stuff, they might be able to find some gains in their running economy
yeah,
or their VO2. And running is a very individual thing as well.
Yeah.
So like obviously it seems like you've found something that really works for you and has seen great improvements for you.
Yeah.
That same thing mightn't work for everyone. And I think like as a coach as well, like that's part of it is like I don't think you can get like I think you can get caught up in like having like one philosophy, but I
Yeah.
think you need to like have like a big overview of like a lot of different philosophies and be able to apply them to maybe different athletes or at different times or like whatever goal that that athlete might be working on because
Yeah.
I've always found that like your body adapts to the training stimulus you give it, but if you keep giving it that same stimulus then there's not as much to kind of grow from, so it's
Yeah.
then maybe you need to look at like some other stimulus to tap into.
Yeah. No,
Mm.
that's fair. I think, yeah, you kind of get diminishing returns with
Mm.
any one training approach, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, this is one that I find I'm interested to hear your opinion on this. So Launceston seems to produce a much higher rate of elite slash national class runners than Hobart, at least over the last 15 years or so. And I guess I should preface by saying Hobart, it's a bit over twice the size of Launceston.
Yeah.
It's the capital of Tasmania. So if you don't know where those cities are or what I'm talking about, hopefully that kind of clues you in. But why do you think that is? Why do you think Launceston seems to produce a much higher rate of elite slash national class runners?
My main answer to that is the culture and role models that have been around at the time.
Yeah,
So I think when I was coming through, like there were people like Dave Thomas who were running pretty well and doing big mileage. I wouldn't necessarily say that I like copied things that he did, but I guess then I maybe broke through as one of the better runners in Launceston, and
yeah,
like I was very interested in the training and that kind of thing, and believed that the more I did within reason, that the better I was going to be. And so I guess then that um, like without pumping my tires up or anything, but I guess that then like was an influence to some of the people that I was training with at the time, like James Hansen. He was like pretty young at the time, and he's gone on to have a brilliant career.
yeah,
He's ran like he's a fairly high mileage athlete himself, and we had lots of other guys around too, like Dylan Evans is. I think he's ran sub 14 for 5K as well, and Dougie Hammerlock's here
yeah,
now. There were just a lot of guys. Whereas if I compared it to Hobart, there were some fantastic athletes, but most of them were like better at like the 800 and 1500 meters. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that like the training plans that they were on were far lower in volume.
yeah,
So I'd probably say it's probably to do with who the role models were at the time, especially like back then. Like even though we started to have Strava and stuff, like training knowledge was still nowhere near what it
yeah,
probably is now. And I think now James is a great example of someone who's been a role model to many people. Like now you've got like the Sam Cliffords, who looked up to Jimbo, and I think it's probably that's got to be a fair factor in it.
yeah. That's good point. I so back in 2005, I'm pretty sure I'd never even heard the term threshold or tempo run.
Yeah.
No one was doing it in Hobart. So it's interesting how things have changed so much with the internet and whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't recall doing threshold runs
Yeah,
until yeah, like, yeah, 2010s or 12 or yeah, I
yeah.
don't,
And I
would
can
have been a
remember
while.
Grant Page telling me that he did 90 kilometers a week, and I thought that was heaps. I thought that was
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
And yeah,
Well,
and it seems like now, even now, not many people are running above 100 Ks a week in Hobart. I
nah.
mean, Nick Earl, and I look at like some of the Strava groups and just see the leaderboards on there, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's pretty much Nick Earl and me, and that's it.
Yeah, like we as like I guess a cyclist now, like with the amount of hours that cyclists typically put in, I guess you kind of look at like a low volume running
Mm.
training week, and you're like, oh, like you're only doing like 6 hours a week,
Yeah,
kind of thing. Where like because cyclists, like obviously esports is a bit of a hybrid. We don't do as much as the road guys, but like even still, you put in like a fairly high volume because there's no impact. But yeah, it's
yeah,
definitely a lot more training
yeah. And you
than
think about
what.
that, like 6 hours
Mm,
in the scheme of a whole week, that's such a
yeah,
small percentage of
it
your
is.
overall time. I mean, how do
Yeah,
you think you're going to get any kind of
yeah,
signal for adaptation if you're only doing 6 hours of running a week? But
yeah,
anyway,
and like I mean, like your general hobby joggers and stuff like that. That might be all that they can then
yeah,
that they can apply to their week. But for people that are really like trying to be the absolute best that they can be, I certainly think for most people that yeah, running more will probably
yeah.
be a good thing for them.
Yeah, last few questions. I guess running has changed quite a lot since the early 2000s when you started. In your opinion, what's one change that's improved the sport and one that's made it worse?
So I think one that's improved the sport would definitely be like the access to all of that training knowledge these days. I think kids can go through with either either mentors that actually have a decent understanding of what people around the world are doing to have success in running.
Yep,
Um, but I think that applies to most runners. We know what the best guys are doing, so we can kind of use some of that for our own training. And I think that differs to when we were young, where we essentially just had a couple of guys who were interested in athletics and not necessarily having like any real
yeah,
qualifications or anything, and we're just following some of their folklore and
yep,
random like little sessions and stuff like that. So I think that's been a massive reason why that there are kids these days breaking 4 minutes for the mile is they're kind
mm,
of into it so early and that kind of thing. And I can't think of heaps that has like made the sport worse. But one thing that I find really interesting is how with how cool running is these days.
mm.
Like running wasn't cool when I
There
was
was,
doing it, but it's never translated to like the uptake in like track and field athletics,
yeah,
which I guess is your development pathway into like competitive, like really top level, like road running and stuff like that. There's such a discrepancy between people going out for their running groups and even park run and stuff like that, which are all awesome things. And people are loving their running. But if you went out to like I haven't been out there for a long time, but if you went to a Launceston Interclub in the summer season, there would be almost no one there. Like it just hasn't
mm,
picked up. Like people have got other sports that are probably more lucrative and exciting to try out, and there's still that for some reason like the track and field scene just has like oh you have to be really good at it to participate in it.
yeah, yeah,
Um, whereas you go out to park run and everyone's just out there having fun. But at the same time, you go out to park run and you could be standing next to someone as good as Jimmy Hansen and like, but it doesn't matter. Everyone's very much like invested in their own run and can't kind of fathom how fast a 13-minute 5K runner is.
yeah. That's interesting because to me, park, it seems like it would transition really well into like 5K on the track. I mean,
Mm.
park run's the same course every week. So if people say, oh, it's boring, the track, well, you're doing the same course every week. That's going to get boring too.
Yeah,
So maybe it is just that feeling of
exactly.
being on show, I guess, when you're going around the same
Yeah,
meter loop. I don't know.
yeah,
Um,
but it just hasn't translated like the way that it potentially could as a sport, which I guess like if you want high class performance, like the sport, I don't think is like progressing, but
mm,
like recreationally, it's massive. Like my
yeah,
Instagram's full of running now. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I've got one in terms of things that have made it worse. I don't like that all the like small road races and fun runs, they're kind of disappearing. a little bit. There used to
Mm.
be all of these great races down here in Hobart, like
Yep.
the Hobart or the Roll Fun Run, as it was called, formerly Cranky
Yep.
Fun Run.
Yep.
So that then we used to have the Around the River Fun Run, and I think that might have been eaten up by Park Run a little
Yeah.
bit. And again, Park Run is great. It's brought heaps and heaps of people into the sport, and this might not be a thing for anyone else outside of Hobart,
Mm.
but it's definitely eaten into those smaller events that used to be run
Yeah.
by athletics clubs and used to be
Yeah.
fundraisers.
Because why? I guess if your park run's fairly fast, or like
Yeah,
you might not care about your like every ounce of improvement. Like, why am I going to pay $30 or forty
yeah,
bucks to go to this random race when I can go to park run?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point. I Do we have fun runs left in Launceston that aren't elite, like with elite status?
yeah,
Like, yeah, I even know that like back when we were younger, like the Launceston Athletic Club or Launceston
yeah,
Running Club, like that was a really good alternative to our winter season. They
mm,
still operate, but I think Parkrun have like most of their kind of clientele,
yeah,
because you can go out and get it done early on a Saturday and get it done. You can do it with your mates. You can have fun, go and have a coffee afterwards, which is great. But it's just, it's an interesting one.
yeah. It's just, yeah, that Hobart 5K, that used to be the best, one of my
Yeah,
favorite runs. It was fast, flat. It's
yeah,
kind of, I'm not sure if it really even did close down because of Parkrun or whatever, but whatever, it's gone.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so I guess the last few questions. Tell me about your cycling training. How does it
yeah,
differ from the ways people traditionally train for running? So you talked about the demands of the event are a little bit different. It's more of a
yeah,
fartlek effort where you really have to
yeah,
stick with
yeah.
the peloton. But how do you train for cycling?
Yeah. So in the last 3 years, again, I've done a lot of different things at different
Yeah,
times to try and prepare. Initially, I had great gains with like doing heap more intensity. This year, I've taken things to another level by, I'd say, accumulating more like around threshold minutes.
yeah,
That's seen like a big jump in like some of my performances, but that's not necessarily specific to the world champs that we've got coming up, which
yeah,
requires like I'd say far punchier style efforts. So
yeah,
the last 6 weeks, I've kind of tried to transition from being, I guess, the fittest that I've ever been on the bike to more ready for like really short, sharp, repeated efforts, while I guess maintaining that kind of best fitness that I've ever had. So
yeah,
it definitely varies based on the event coming up. My training week to week is actually really similar to like a running week, I'd say. Um,
mm,
because we're not road cycling where they're out for hours and hours a day, day after day, requiring like those repeated efforts after like burning thousands of calories,
yeah,
um, kind of thing. So most of our events are like an hour or even less. So I actually find that like doubles and stuff are really beneficial because, instead of going out for like 3 hours most days and trying to like cram intervals into like most of that 3 hours, I find it's really good to split like a 3 hour day into a couple of 90-minute sessions and get
yeah,
intensity in twice.
yeah,
So I really like that, like kind of that running philosophy in that sense. So
yeah,
at the moment, a typical week, about 17 hours, which is actually similar to what my peak marathon weeks were.
yeah,
I'm riding 10 times, I'd say. Um, Probably two days that are really easy slash recovery. Um, and then kind of like often something a little bit longer, and then you can on the bike you can do a little bit more intensity
yeah,
because you don't have that same impact. But for the most part, I guess that looks similar to what a lot of running weeks would look like, just with a fair bit of intensity in those days. But yeah, trying to balance like a lot of like threshold work, staying like very, very fit, but trying to improve the VO2 max, the repeatability of like really like sprinting and then kind of settling in and going again and that kind of thing.
yeah. the additional intensity, I found that as well when I was doing a bit of cross training for a while and when I was injured, essentially just doing, you could do 5 days a week of
Yeah.
pretty intense stuff. I just raced on Zwift.
Yeah.
That was the most
Yeah.
fun way to
Oh,
do
it's
it.
yeah, heaps of fun. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No,
It's
that's,
such a good way to get like unstructured structure in.
yeah,
Like I actually probably the first year that I started like esports seriously, I thought that I was in a place where I was never gonna go back to like structured training. Like I just
yeah,
jumped into it to races and maybe I'd pick a course that had like a profile that was gonna get a bit more threshold out
mm,
or some harder efforts. But like there was a year where I thought that just racing all the time, I'm gonna be like as good as I can be. But I did eventually realize that that structure was a good thing, and I
yeah,
am very much back on the structured training kind of protocol. Like we obviously still race
yeah,
like somewhat frequently, I'd say compared to runners.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I've certainly taken big steps with like the training philosophies and stuff that are very similar to what they are in running.
yeah. So what are you training for at the moment?
Yeah, so World Champs semi-finals next weekend. So I think it's the 4th of October for us.
Yep,
The top we race from home next weekend, and the top 20 get to go to the UAE for the final. So I was lucky enough to go last year and finish eighth, which was it was awesome. So good to meet these people that you kind of compete against online, but you've never
yeah,
actually met. And I think it's going to be really difficult. The level just keeps going up and up and up. Um, but I think this year, if I can make the top 20, I think the trip will be like a lot less, a lot less pressure. Like not that there was pressure, but I think I'll be able to enjoy it a bit more and just go out there and just enjoy the opportunity and that kind of thing. So hopefully we can squeeze into the top 20.
cool. I'll be following along.
Thanks, mate.
Um, how long has it been since you ran a beer mile?
Last beer mile I ran I think was 2020. We did a virtual like a filmed one for the virtual worlds, and we all sent it in on like the same day and then found out who the virtual world champion was. So 2020. And actually when I gave up running, I
Yep.
was training for the 2022 Beer Mile World Classic. That was the next big race on my agenda when I was doing that session and pulled the pin. I was about to book the flights to Belgium, but never happened, and we went in a different path, and we've had some awesome opportunities from it. So no
Yep.
regrets.
All right. Guess we should probably call it there. That's yeah, we've been going for about an hour and a half. So
Yeah, far
um
out.
no, it's been really good talk.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Where can people find you, I guess? Follow you
So
along.
Instagram _ Josh Harris. We don't
Yep.
post that much up there these days. We're a 35-year-old person.
Yeah.
I post esports recaps and stuff on YouTube. Probably just
Yep.
type in Josh Harris esports. But
I'll link it in the description. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's probably not for everyone. It's a bit of a
Yep.
niche kind of thing. But yeah, if anyone is interested, then yeah, that's where we're at.
All
Or
right.
Strava as well. We still post everything up on Strava pretty heavily.
Yeah. And I guess people could go back as well and look through your old
It's
training
all
logs
yeah,
and yeah.
it's all there. Go back and give me a random notification from some run. I always find that funny when Doug Hammerlock does that.
Yeah. All right. All right. I guess we'll call it there. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, mate.